Hi, everybody. Welcome to FSU Coach Sports Talk Live, FSU Coach Live Sports Talk. Haven't quite figured that one out yet. Maybe you guys can help me. Thanks for joining me and being part of this discussion. If you're just joining us watching and you want to be part of this, I can post another couple of people on the stream. So if you wouldn't mind, so Keith, start with you. Just a little introduction to yourself and where you are, what you're doing.
All right. My name is Keith Allen. I'm the head football coach at the Kings Academy. I've been in West Palm Beach, Florida. I've been there for the past 6.5 years.
Either one of you, I don't mind.
Coach Reedus, you're up, darling.
Okay. My name is Manisha Reedus. I am the head women's basketball coach at Palm Beach Atlantic University here in West Palm Beach, Florida. I've just completed my second year here at PBA.
And I'm Dr. Chris Hobbs. I'm the Director of Athletics at the Kings Academy, and I am in year 4 at Kings, and I have the privilege of working with our head football coach, Keith Allen, there.
All right. Well, thanks you guys so much for joining me. And by the way, feel free to, retweet or reshare or whatever the feed. We should be on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, those 3 platforms. I wanted to kind of get away from my formal interviews. If you've seen Chris's interview with me, this was before the professionalism area that we've been working on, Chris, and it was but it was very much of a formal, me ask you questions, you give me answers back, and I wanted to kind of get away from that a little bit and have a little bit more of a discussion about sports in our society, and then each week have maybe a different topic that we talk about. We're obviously in a Corona environment, which has just changed all our lives, and it's changed mine. I'm curious how it's changed your lives as well.
I think we're doing a lot of this, which is not hugely normal. Especially for this time of year. We'd be probably still doing like having kids on campus for visits, things like that, saying goodbye to our seniors. And so it's instead been a lot of FaceTime calls, Zoom calls, that kind of thing, cardio, just kind of on motivating myself or whatever. So life has become a lot more virtual and not social media virtual, but just kind of out of necessity, a lot of this.
Yeah. For us professionally, we've had to be really, really patient with our students because at the high school level, we'd be in spring football right now. So we didn't really do much football-wise with them because we wouldn't have during the school year until this week for Florida or last week in Florida. So we've been really hands-off, but touching base with them, talking to our leaders like we would on a daily basis. But the in and out interaction at, walking down to the cafeteria or on the college campus, going somewhere to the union and running into the kids, that normal daily interaction has gone away. So we've had to be more intentional with structuring a Zoom or some sort of text or something. But, trying to be aware and cognizant of our student athlete space, especially as they transition, because every student athlete handles what we're going through now differently. So we've been really, with kid and gloves on these kids right now, trying to figure out where they are, how they're handling it at their home lives, how they're handling it from a technology standpoint. So
I know for me, just being an athletic director and kind of getting a chance to kind of watch Keith. So before Keith came to Kings, Keith spent, I think, nearly 20 years, if not 20 years, coaching college football. Right. And so Keith's brought a lot of that experience to Kings in the sense that college coaches in general are, it feels like almost constantly in contact with their student athletes. So it's like their student athletes are literally your job. And so Keith's brought a lot of that to Kings, where his football players are never too far removed from his connection. And so it's been really, really cool to watch Keith continue to stay in contact with the Kings Academy football players during this experience. and watch him almost leverage the mindset of, as a college coach, you never really lose touch with your kids ever. Like, it's your job to stay in touch with them. And Keith's kept that going here. Maybe he'll share a little bit of how he's done that. And for me personally, I have spent so much time with people that I never would have under any other circumstances, because I would have been busy with life.
Hey, you did an interview with me, right? So
I mean, Tim
all of a sudden you're available.
Tim and I are talking almost weekly as he's trying to get this really cool coaching program at FSU up and running. And so he and I are talking because I work in the world of sport here in Florida. I meet with Keith once a week right now. Every Tuesday night we have a 7:00 standing meeting with all of our varsity head coaches and directors inside of our department. So it's about 25 people, and never in the history of Kings Academy Athletics, has any athletic director been able to contact all of those people weekly in a meeting, because you can't get them all together because they're busy, living their lives, doing their thing. And so this will be the second time ever I've had a conversation with Coach Reedus. The last time we were standing on the steps of the basketball facility at PBA, and it was the first time we ever talked to each other. So, there has been some things. We would never have chosen this, but there has been some things that I think will continue to yield value after we get out of this.
Well, if you're just joining us, a couple spots open on the stream. If you want to get in on the discussion live, we just need your camera. And the link is there in the text. I tried to make it as small as possible. And so join us. We've got a couple spots open. If you got a PC, if you got a Mac, different ways to get on and join the discussion. Otherwise, if you have questions or whatever, put them in your chat box and we'll open them up for discussion. One of the questions that I've been thinking about is, I saw the NCAA kind of stamp down on how you train athletes, right? They became quite restrictive in, hey, you can't just be training people through Zoom or whatever with your athletes. Has there been any kind of restrictions in high school? And looking at Coach Reedus here, how are you doing it as a college coach when you NCAA are kind of controlling what you do? How is it working?
I'll let Chris answer the high school regulations. We're real fortunate to have a head strength coach that's involved with all of our student athletes and our football players especially. So I know he's been in touch with our kids on that standpoint. Again, I've been more getting gloves on them to make sure they're doing their academic work. That's to me right now, the most important thing is these kids in the semester with good grades. We can recondition the athletes, but it's really hard to redo grades over the summer. So that's kind of where we're at with it. But our strength coach does a great job. I know him and Chris have been in constant contact with us and all the head coaches about our protocols, how we're going to move forward. But I don't know about I knew about the NCAA legislations because I still have a lot of friends in the coaching world up there, but I'm not really sure what we had, if there was anything other than the state mandates going on for the high school level.
Manisha, what's going on for you?
Well, I think it's a lot of the same. We are fortunate to have an administration, our AD, Courtney Lovely, our compliance officer, Wispany. They've done an amazing job of just kind of keeping us in the loop. And Coach, you said, like, explaining those things when it comes to, like, governance has come down and they're saying this. Well, what does that mean? Say it in coach. Like, what can we do and what can we not do? But similar to Coach, again, I think a lot of our conversations I'm having with my team weekly are about academics, finishing the semester strong. We just finished up over the weekend. And honestly, just having conversations with them. Obviously, it was huge for us. It's huge for me that their mental health is doing good right now. Everybody we're living unconventional lives right now. And so that part of it, more than, hey, here's a summer strength guideline and here's a basketball workout guideline. Hopefully those guys are motivated to, stay active on their own, because that's just a part of their DNA. But what's important to me right now is, and the NCAA doesn't have to tell me, I want to know that they're okay. I want to know that their families are okay, and focus on those things right now. And we'll deal with getting in shape and doing stuff over the summer when that time comes. But just kind of staying in tune and having conversations about how are y'all doing? What are you feeling right now? And finding creative ways to keep them motivated and keep spirits up and stay connected right now. And again, I think it's, and Coach, you probably feel the same way about your athletic director, but I think leadership during this time has been huge for us. And so we're not out of the loop on what's going on institutionally or on the NCAA level. We're getting updates all the time. And so there's that, just kind of that transparency, I think, is comforting in a way for us, where it's we're not going to get blindsided by anything. And so with everything that's going on, I think that part of it is a huge blessing and comfort, and it helps me be a better leader to my team right now, because that trickle down is like, hey, they don't care about care logs right now. They want to know that we're doing okay. So that's the way I am with my team right now.
I saw some good news just before we went on stream that the Bundesliga, the German soccer team, have scheduled that they're going to start in a couple of weeks behind closed doors competing. So they're the first kind of major organization to say, hey, we're going to start up again. So that's kind of encouraging to see. We've I don't know about you all, but I've seen a lot of negativity in the coronavirus world, where there's so many things that went wrong, and so many things that are a problem, and we don't have any money, and how are fans going to watch, and where's the advertising going to come from? Have you seen any other than being able to have all your coaches in a meeting once a week? Have you seen any other kind of, this has kind of been a good thing? This is kind of something that we can appreciate even when we go back to what we consider, quote unquote, a normal world?
Yeah, and Chris has shared this with us, and this has kind of been the overall trend in our athletic department is our kids, we're at a small Christian school, and most of our kids are playing multiple sports or going year round. So this is the first time the moral majority of our student athletes have pumped the brakes, so this is the first time a lot of our kids have had a rest. Yeah. And so we're really excited about, and again, as coaches, we got to remember, and we talked about this in our last staff meeting, is these kids will be refreshed. They'll be untrained, but they'll be refreshed, and we'll probably get more out of them and have more focus than we've ever had, because they're chomping at the bit to go to practice. They're chomping at the bit to do their skills. They're chomping at the bit to get better, to be around their teammates. And, when you're grinding 24/7 year round, sometimes that fire goes away. And I believe you're going to see a rekindling of student athletes across the nation. Now, we're going to be the worst conditioned athletes in the world across the board, but we will have more capacity. But the other thing is, we've been doing more meetings, like Coach talked about, talking about self-development and being very intentional about our standards that we wanted for a team and our culture. So I've done a lot more homework assignments, so to speak, as you would in a classroom setting, for these kids to redefine their why. Why are they playing football? Why are they willing to go out when it comes back to go put in the work when everybody else is going to go to the beach? So we've been really redefining and being very intentional with our culture, why they're in this downtime. And then we've been pressing these kids to do some sort of personal development. Chris is using a hashtag never miss, working out all the time. And we're telling our kids, hey, don't get better during this time. Read a book, find a podcast, do something to get personal growth and development going on. And our kids are responding positively to that, instead of binging on every Netflix show and eating Cheetos and sitting on the couch. So, hopefully they're getting something out of it besides, Cheetos and Netflix. So
I've gotten feeling guilty by watching Chris's Twitter feed. It's like he reads 7 books a week and is working out every day, and it's just like, come on, man, stop being a hero here.
I think 2 things that are really, I think, are beginning to bear fruit would be in this time, especially when you're trying to lead during crisis, whether you're leading student athletes or you're working together with your coaches as an AD, you have to hold very firm to your mission and keep the mission. Keith already said the why at the forefront of your mind and your heart at all times. And that'll help you navigate the fact that your methods are totally useless right now, right? Like all of our methods have been, blown to smithereens because they don't work. Because we're either totally virtual or we're so small group oriented now. We can't be within 6 feet of people. And so, but I think if you keep your mission at the forefront of your mind and your heart and you're talking about it, I think you figure out new methods almost symbiotically. It's almost like a natural evolution of keeping your mission in front of your mind. And so I think Keith, he could talk more about some of the stuff he's done virtually with his kids, but you can already hear Keith is redefining, that, or at least reemphasizing that mission with the kids. And then they start to figure out, their new methods, and Keith and his coaching staff start to figure out the new methods, And then the other thing that's big right now is I think connection. I think people have prioritized connection right now because we are so disconnected physically. They've prioritized connection. And one of the things that we've been talking about a lot in the athletic department is whatever we do well right now will return tenfold to us when we get back together. And so if you connect well now, your relationships are going to go into like hyperspeed when you can all finally get back together and give each other a hug and a high five and a fist bump, And so those 2 things, I think, are those 2 mindsets, I think, mission at the forefront of your mind and connection as a priority. I think those 2 things already are starting to yield a little bit of fruit. Where we can feel an intensity and a focus right now, even though we don't really know what the end of this looks like right now. And so those would be 2 things that I think are positively kind of boiling up to the surface, at least in the world that Keith and I are operating in.
I wonder too, I mean, we talk about the sport specialization, right? And just playing a sport year round and kind of the damage that does. I thought, well, you know what, this may be an opportunity. I know I interviewed a professional racquetball player on their stream a few weeks ago, and she said, this is the first time in 20 years that I've had an off season.
Wow.
and I've been able to rest my body and recover, because normally in racquetball, you have your off season. That's international play. That's when you go compete for your country. And if you're that good, you're going to go every year. So you never do get an off season. And it was just kind of like, wow, you know what? That's a really good point. And, maybe it allows some of these athletes to just let their body heal and just recover. I mean, obviously we have the concern of we come back, and do we come back too soon, i.e. unprepared for competition, and we're not physically prepared, or we're not mentally prepared necessarily. But it has, I think, allowed a lot of players time just to take a break, right? Let those niggling injuries heal and get back to where you could be, as opposed to that kind of year-round play that we see so often.
No, absolutely. No, go ahead, Chris.
I definitely think that's 100% true, not only physically, but mentally. So just watching my 3 children. So I've got a daughter that's about to graduate high school. And then I've got a son who's a freshman, who is a really highly committed, fanatical distance runner. And then I've got a 7th grade daughter that's playing volleyball, 9.5 months a year. She takes off about 2 months to play lacrosse. And they have all stayed very committed to their craft, but only because they want to right now. Like there's a mental release to that, where like they don't have to go to a practice if they don't want. My son doesn't have to put in 1 mile if he doesn't want. And so I think there's been some mental refreshing, some mental off season that's happened, because I think a lot of student athletes are starting to figure out whether or not they're doing it because they love it, or whether they're doing it because they feel like they're in some type of rat race that they can't get themselves out of. And so I think there's a lot of physical, mental, and emotional resetting happening right now for student athletes. I think some kids are going to take 8 weeks off because they're just freaking exhausted, and they have been for years. And they're going to take 8 weeks off, 10 weeks off, 12 weeks off. And guess what? If they come back in an intelligent, slow paced way, bring themselves back slowly, in a year, they might be at a level they never would have imagined, because it all correlates back to the fact they took 10 weeks off in a time and day and age where we never take 10 weeks off, So I think there could be some important seeds being planted right now, mentally, emotionally, physically.
Nope, agreed. Our kids right now, we call them student athletes, but right now they're students. They were students for like the last month. And so I totally agree. We talk a lot about have to versus get to. And so I do, when we talk about like a reset and reignition of man, I'm playing this game because I really love it. Not because I'm getting a scholarship or not because my parents want me to. I'm doing it because I really enjoy it. And so I think this time has been really, really, really beneficial when we're saying, hey, what are your priorities? Those kinds of things. Well, now they get to make a choice, or a choice was taken away of doing certain things. But so now when we are back in full swing, well, man, how much am I really, really, really wanting to do this? And those are choices they get to make. And so now I think it allows that time to really, really, really think about what they have to do versus what they get to do.
Yeah. Well, we actually got a question in, and it's from Jay Hawkins, who, by the way, will be a guest next week on FSU Coach. So join and watch him talk about. God, I had a break. I had just a mind break. Energy, OKC Energy, and the pro soccer team. He's a general manager, and he says, what are one or two things that you've been able to get to do during this time that you're going to stick with, but you never had time to get to prior? And I'll start by talking about FSU Coach Live. I've wanted to do this since I moved to FSU, but just the time, right, and the opportunity just wasn't there. And then all of a sudden, all my meetings are canceled, all my trips are canceled, et cetera, et cetera. And here I am with, okay, how do I connect with people in the sports world while I'm stuck in my bedroom for weeks on end? And so I was able to start this, and there's, I've been doing one a day for the last, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. And yeah, I'm going to slow down, but I still want to continue this because I found it to be a very valuable resource, hopefully for my students going forward, but also for me. I've learned a lot from you guys contributing to this knowledge base. So I really want to stick with this. Yeah.
Agreed. I think a lot of the virtual things that have happened, I've seen a lot of people saying, man, we've got to keep doing this stuff even when it's normal again, kind of thing, or our new normal. So I think just kind of the sharing of knowledge, being able to find connection with people maybe that you had a disconnection from, or whatever it is. I think I've gained and learned so much over the last 2 months, really, just from sitting in on virtual coaching clinics, coaching summits, stuff like that if we were in our daily hustle and bustle, I don't know that I would take the time to sit down and spend an hour or 2 or 3 every single day watching a coach give whatever kind of talk online. So those kinds of things, I think hopefully we get to continue, even if it's where, like you guys talk about a weekly talk now. Well, I want to continue a lot of those things that have become a part of my routine right now when it comes to sharing knowledge and just getting pouring into others, those kinds of things that kind of get lost in our daily shuffle.
Any others you gonna?
Yeah. So for me, probably 2 things will be, so there's a concept in education called the flipped classroom, where basically you film all of your lecturing and the students watch it at home, And then the classroom time is reserved for discussion about the lecture and projects and question asking and things like that. And so one of the things that I'm kind of formulating is I'm going to flip my management. Management and leadership are two parallel things that have to be done, though they're very different. I love the leadership because it's life on life. And the management is kind of like, the crossing the T's and the dotting the I's. So I'm going to flip my management as best I can, meaning preseason coaches meetings will be done via Zoom. And if you can't miss it, if you can't make it, it's recorded and you're responsible to watch it, and stuff like that, and kind of flip my management so that I can stop bullying management process into people's lives in an inconvenient way. And so that I can use that now new space to lead people, to love people, to interact with people. So I'm gonna do everything I can to flip as much of my management as I can, because I think it'll be more conveniently consumed by the people that, you got to lay out the standards and you got to talk through the handbooks, you got to do all that stuff. But I think in a flipped way, it'll actually give me more bandwidth to lead people, love people, serve people, things like that. And then the other thing I'm going to try and do is online has a way of scaling up the way that face-to-face analog doesn't. And so when we're talking about the athletics part of the Kings Academy, in many ways, it's the front porch of the school. And so if we can create a great narrative around our athletic department, we can create a great narrative along large chunks of our school as well. It's this weird thing that if people see Keith and his kids play great on Friday night, and then they bump into the history teacher in the grocery store on Saturday, they think Kings has got great history. Well, why? Because they watch football team Friday night win a football game. So everything at Kings must be great,
It's why enrollment goes up at universities when they win a football national championship, right?
Yeah, I mean, Butler University, back-to-back years that they were in the national championship for men's basketball, their admissions applications were like triple records, back-to-back years. And so controlling the narrative of your department is very important in today's day and age, and online scales up. It can scale that conversation up the way that face-to-face parent meetings just can't. And so we're going to continue to push the initiative of having just a massive online presence for our athletic department, which is really, we've been forced to. We had a pretty decent one. We were pretty excited about it, but this is just taking it to a whole new level, because it's all we have right now. And I think a lot of that stuff will continue. I'm going to continue to push that momentum even when we get back together. So those are two things that have kind of evolved now that I think I'll probably hold on to in some form when we get back.
Looking at, just this coronavirus situation and everything that's gone on, we talked about the athletes getting some, much needed rest, and also, Coach Rita's talking about coaches having an opportunity to get professional development and more learning and kind of recharge the batteries too. What about as an administration though? Has it allowed you to reflect on like the operations that you have, the staff that you work with, and efficiency? What can we do better? Does it allow you to analyze maybe let me step back and just look at who's doing what and can we make it better? Or is it just we've continued in an environment where we're still busy, even though we're at home or we can't go to work in the normal environment that we want? We're still too busy to really kind of think about how our operations run in that sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I definitely know what you mean. There are some things that we probably should have killed that this scenario has kind of put to rest, and I'll never bring them back. I had a conversation with a group of ADs a couple weeks ago about this exact topic. Like, what have you stopped doing that you'll never start again? And there's a short list of 2 or 3 things that required a tremendous amount of time and effort. And they were very, very unyielding on the calendar, right? Like they were just like big anchors. And this has forced us to kind of cut those anchors loose. And I'm pretty sure I'm not going to reconnect to them. One of the things that, we're looking at in that regards would be, I already referenced it, coaches meetings, like preseason coaches meetings, getting everyone together. If there's 1 or 2, I'll keep. but your regular run-of-the-mill fall, winter, and spring preseason coaches meetings, I'm not going to bully my way into someone's evening anymore and require them to come on campus for anything. We'll do it on Zoom. Go home, get your dinner. I'll see you at 8:00. We'll do a quick 30-minute on Zoom. If you can't make it, it's recorded. You got to watch it, early the next morning. And so there's some things that I think we're being forced to stop doing that we should all never do again anyway. And maybe that's one of the silver linings. Like I said, we would have never chosen this, but there is going to be some positives that will come from it.
Looking at yourselves and the kind of experiences you've had in this environment, taking some time to reflect and things, are there anything beyond kind of looking at your professional lives, looking at your personal lives that have changed? And I'll give an example. I've spent the last 15 years going to work every morning, coming home usually late in the evening, not late, but late-ish, day in, day out. And all of a sudden I'm here all day with my kids, and I'm able to, play a game of Catan or something in the middle of the afternoon, which I would never do unless it was a weekend, right? So another example is that every night I've been able to, go for a walk with my wife and dog. Sometimes the kids, if we can drag them along, do we have to? It's so boring. But we're able to do that, and I've never done that before. And it was kind of that realization of, I need to do more of this. We spend so much time at work and so much mental energy on how do we get better? How do we improve the product that we're doing, whether it's an athletics program or an academic program, this has been kind of like wow, this is nice. Why haven't I done this more? And so it's changed my personal kind of priorities a little bit, in that, I need to recognize that in 4 years, one of my kids is going to be out of my house. Maybe, probably not, but theoretically out of my house. And, how much time am I spending with him, really? So it's been a personal reflection for me of just kind of like, don't prioritize work too much, and try to spend more time with your family. What about you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, one of the things that we've done is, we get up in the morning. My wife is an administrator at a school, and so she leaves every day like normal. She probably works more now than she did before, like we were talking about before. But so I get up, I take my son for a walk. We go for a little 2-mile walk. There's a Dunkin' Donuts about a mile away from the house. It works out perfectly. And then we come in, and then I'm a 7th grade teacher for about 2.5 hours. I supervise and watch, and we fight, scream, gnashing of teeth, all that fun stuff that comes with being a parent teacher. And then we get the schoolwork done. Then he goes and does whatever he needs to do, and has his downtime. And then I take care of my academic side of my job, answer emails, make sure all my lesson plans are up, like Chris reverted to, flipped. But when my wife comes home, we're able to make dinner as a family. And then, like you said, we go for a walk, and if our son's in the right frame of mind, in the right mood, he'll go with us. And, so now we're getting our steps in, because the first week in this lockdown, or when we were at home, the first thing I noticed was, without practice and being on campus, my 10,000 steps I got easily every day. I was looking at my watch and I had like 2,000, It was me going to the refrigerator or something. So really, really, like you said, I really enjoyed walking with my wife at night. We never did that. Football season rolls in, and, I don't know if it'll be feasible then or not. We're coming home at 8 or 9, but it's still, those are the things that we're finding out now, I guess, all of us, is, hey, we have a little bit of time that, maybe work doesn't need us at this particular time. Maybe we can come home. Maybe we can do these things. And like Chris said, with the, I know video conferencing's been around, but forcing us to use it, we're finding out, hey, there's a lot of pluses to this that we can utilize. I've always done a good job of calling my friends across the country, talking ball, but it's always been on a phone while I'm doing a walk, or, while I'm driving. And now we've done some Zoom conferences, and, mind you, I'm sitting at a desk when I do it, but, we're having a more meaningful interaction than just a phone call. So there's a lot of really neat things that we're learning about ourselves and about technology and how we can utilize it right now.
Yeah. looking kind of ahead, and I don't want to take up all your time today, but so I want to kind of walk away with some kind of tangibles, right? If somebody's watching this later or on the podcast or whatever, well, what are some of the tangibles that you could maybe give advice to or walk away with for somebody to say, hey, I can incorporate that into my life as a coach or as an athlete or as a athletic director or whatever position they have, based on the last 8 weeks, which has just transformed all of our lives to a point I don't think anybody anticipated this, but it's also allowed us to just spend 8 weeks changing ourselves as well. So if you're to walk away with or give one thing or two things that really might have an impact on someone else based on your experiences and what you do and who you work with, what would you say?
Manisha, you're on the spot, darling. I just volunteered you.
I like how you delegate. Is that it? Delegate more, right?
There we go. And I know coaches use this word a couple times. I think it's being way more intentional than maybe I thought I was when it came to relationships with players, with colleagues, with my family. I think I've told recruits with my players now, we aren't just texting and whatever. I only do FaceTime calls now. And I guess if a recruit doesn't have an iPhone, we'll figure it out. So it's just really taking the time to get to know things about even my siblings that maybe I'm like, wait, what? Just based on extended conversations, that's all we have. Things about my players that I'm like, wait, didn't know that about you guys either. So it's really being even more intentional than I thought I was already, because I'm really relational, but it's I think enhanced it or made me think about it even more, that man, I can do more. I can push the envelope a little bit more when it comes to now being genuine about it, though. But just really, really, really focusing on growing relationships with these guys. I think that's the biggest takeaway right now is if you're at this level, well then, man, what can we do to make it better, and finding creative ways, because I think it's been a lot of that too. It's just getting on the phone and saying, okay, how was your day? Well, that's not good enough anymore. We got to really, really, really dive into
Right.
how's it going? I don't cook. I've had to cook now. That's the struggle's been real, but we've tried to find creative ways. Like with family, we'll pick something and say, we're gonna have a challenge. We're making deviled eggs, and so everybody's got to share what theirs look like. Things like that, where it's now for the things and the people that matter most. I think it's really enhanced. Like, man, you guys are a part of me, and so I want to make you feel like that. I don't want it to be any gray area when it comes to you knowing I care about you, you care about me, that reciprocation. So it's the daily work of, man, I'm going to be even more intentional than I thought I could be about the relationships that are really, really, really important.
Before anyone answers, just a little comment from Chris. He said, I think a positive of all of this is the ability to do some Zoom meetings with my team instead of just sending group texts. It's going to make conversations more personal and meaningful. And I think, you're nodding your head. It's definitely, for some of us who maybe don't use technology that much, to use it a little bit more and then realize, hey, this isn't such a bad thing. We should do more of this. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, continue. It was just a comment.
Oh, I'll go. It's funny you said deviled eggs. We've been working on those. That's my son's. He's been making those every day, literally for lunch the last 4 days. When you said that, I just kind of smiled and went, "Yeah, deviled eggs. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of those." The thing that we've been really that I've really enjoyed, I guess, is, and maybe this is spying, I guess, but let's face it, we all look at each other's backgrounds when we do these Zoom meetings, and we look, and you get to learn so much because, as a college coach, you're recruiting, you go in-home visits, you learn so much about the student athlete when you walk in their house. As a high school coach, I don't really usually go to their home unless there's, a problem of some sort. So doing these Zoom meetings, I've been able to see a little bit, a little peek or a little door into their lives that I don't usually get to see as their high school coach or high school teacher for that matter. So seeing those things in those meetings, and, the kids seemed more relaxed doing a Zoom meeting at home than they would being in a team meeting in the team room, so seeing the kids interact that way. You got to be observant though, and you can say, "Oh, I like that poster in the back of the wall" or something, and then then they become a little bit more intentional about what the background looks like, or they change it once they do those virtual backgrounds. But it's fun. You get to learn a little bit more about your kids. It's like I told our team the other day on one of our calls was it's kind of like the reason we do team camps as a high school team, to get away from everybody, to get away from the noise and really get to interact. Well, sometimes on these Zoom calls, there's still daily interaction going on behind them, but you get that intentional and that really observational relationship with those kids, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I was laughing because you were talking about, backgrounds and Zoom meetings, and there's a Facebook group for educators online. And one of the big discussions has been, how comfortable students have been in class compared to when they're in a classroom. And they've had to put up some policies about, no, you can't be in your PJs or in your bed or, some of these. And it was just kind of like, I could see that. But at the same time, I agree. I think you get to see them for who they are. I know in teaching my online class this spring, which was coaching ethics, it was designed not to be a face-to-face where students have to be on at a certain time. But as soon as Corona hit, I changed it and just kind of gave myself the leeway to say, okay, it's not supposed to be like this, but we got to change the script because I want to know how you're doing. Mm-hmm. Instead of me just getting an email response or a discussion board, conversation, let me talk to you. Let me see your face. We're still here. Things are still going on. And, now I don't think things are as maybe scary as they were 3 weeks ago, where everybody's shutting everything down and there's curfews in Florida and all that stuff. And so I deliberately switched to that face-to-face because I want that interaction so that, hey, I'm here, this is my face. You can always call me, whatever. But I think there's definitely some valid points. Chris, what were you going to say?
Tim, your comment about the and Keith's about the relaxed nature of the virtual classrooms and meetings is hysterical. I guest lectured at PBA a couple weeks ago for one of their sport management classes or something like that, and 25, 30 college kids, spread all over the country watching on Zoom. And there was one young person that was laying on their bed on their stomach, eating a bowl of cereal, watching the whole class. And the reason I could tell that is because they watched it like this the entire time. Like I watched every mouthful of Captain Crunch go in that kid's mouth during that class. So yeah, he was chilling. So here's what I would really recommend to people. Number one, get a great night's sleep every night. We have almost no reason not to get a good night's sleep every night. In regards to the time, like get 7 to 8 hours every night. I can't think of a reason why we wouldn't be really trying to make that happen because of some of the freedoms that we have with our time right now. Number two, I would say get up the same time every day and start your day slow. Meaning keep the phone away, keep the internet away, read. Sit on your back porch, drink a cup of coffee, be quiet. For me, faith's a big part of my life. And quite honestly, I know Manisha and Keith well enough to know faith's a big part of their life. To sit quietly, and just think about my faith and think about God and think about God's word. That's been an extra special time. So I would say start the day slow, right? Like, don't get out of bed and start hustling to things. It's amazing how important it is to slow down in such a fast-paced day and age. And then the third thing I would say is pick that one thing that you've always said you're going to do, that daily habit, or that, I don't know, that 5,000 piece jigsaw puzzle that you've said you're always going to put together. Pick that one thing you've always said you're going to do and do it for a little bit every single day. I got this corny mantra of like, never miss. If it's an important daily thing, never miss it. No matter how early in the morning, how late at night, never miss the thing. Now's a great time, to kind of experiment with some of those things. So, it can be a walk with your spouse, at night, every night. I'm going to take a walk with my spouse. I'm never going to miss that, or, game night with your kids. I've always wanted to do game night with my kids. And so every Thursday night, we're never missing game night until this thing is over. Those would be the three things that I would think would allow someone to really enjoy and take advantage of what is a time we would have never chosen this. We would have never chosen for this to happen. But I think those three things: a great night's sleep, start the morning slow, and do that one thing every day you've always said you wanted to do. I think you'll get to the end of this and you'll think, man, I did everything I could to take advantage of the unique things about that time in our lives.
Yeah, and I would add to that as well. Maybe each week set a goal of doing something that you normally otherwise wouldn't have done beyond. And so, a couple of weeks ago, I think I posted on Twitter that challenge of, some professional development. Do some professional development this week. So in a week's time, you can say, I got something done that otherwise I wouldn't necessarily do when I was back in the swing of things. And it's been interesting because I set it for that week. And that week I did a bunch of professional development and I didn't finish it, all of it. And I haven't touched it this week. And it's like, well, why haven't I? Well, I've got this to do and I've got that to do and I got that to do. But last week it was very intentional that I'm going to get this stuff done. And, one of them, in fairness, is a long process. It's going to take weeks and weeks to get done. But it's like, hey, I need to stick with that. And then I realized, well, you know what? If I set the shorter goals, I can achieve those goals a little bit more realistically than, I'm going to get this done this year. Mm-hmm. Yeah. December 30th, right? I promised myself. So, but the other thing that I found, and I don't know that it's anything, astonishing, is just how important good leadership is. And we've been in a situation where people have had to make some really, really hard decisions and big decisions too. Ones that cost a lot of money, ones that affect people's lives, jobs, you name it. And a good leadership really helps to make that process understandable and almost workable to some extent. And just being part of FSU and seeing the constant communication about this is what we're doing and this is why we're doing it and this is how you can how it affects you. And oh my gosh, it's so nice, as opposed to what's going on. Does anybody know? Does anybody know when we're going back? Does anybody know we're going to have a budget? I mean, all these questions that we could ask are resolved in advance. And so I think that has been a good lesson for me, is try to answer the questions before people have the questions. And if you can do that, you alleviate a lot of the stress and anxiety that people experience. And so for me, that's been helpful in terms of students. I got students who have questions about the fall and these programs, and I would try to answer those in advance rather than wait till they happen. So that's kind of my takeaway, is just like I've been watching leaders. Some have been great, some have not. And okay, if I'm a leader, how do I learn from how they've handled a crisis, essentially? I don't have any agenda. Any other thoughts or additions or questions before we wrap up? Gets very quiet when I ask that in class too. It's amazing. Can we go now? If you are watching, we're going to try and do this once a week. If you want to be part of it, just join the chat. I want this to be a discussion with groups of people so that we learn from everybody. Hopefully those of you who are watching this live will see some of the others down the road and podcasts. Keith, Chris, Manisha, thank you guys for being willing to try something new and step up to the plate. I appreciate your participation. And also, if you're watching and have any ideas for topics, what should we talk about? I'll ask you guys, what should be the topic for this discussion next week? What do we need to talk about as sports professionals?
I think it's healthy for everyone to be speculating right now. I don't think speculation is healthy as a leader. I think it's a dangerous game to play. But I do think in atmospheres like this, it's good for people to kind of just think tank. Hey, how are we going to safely bring our athletes back? Like, what does that look like? What organizations are beginning to hand us some guidelines that we can start to hypothesize what that's going to look like? And so, there's a thin line between that and speculation. I think speculation sets leaders up to erode their trust because, you're either a doomsdayer, or you're wrong and you don't believe in so speculation is hard and has to be handled carefully. But I think lots of people think tanking on, hey, what's in the best interest of the safety of student athletes when they come back. I think that's a really healthy conversation for people to have.
Great. Great idea. Let's try and do it. If you guys want to join me next week, you're welcome to join me. If you're watching, you want to join, welcome to join as well. Manisha, Chris, and Keith, thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Tim, thanks for having us.